Hey guys, welcome back to another Overwatch League discussion, and in tonight's video, I just wanted to spend some time and talk about the newly added hero pools that Blizzard talked about today, and more specifically how it impacts the Overwatch League. Now, I'm not sure how the rest of you feel about this, but I think there's so much you have to think about and process in your head when it comes to hero pools and how it's going to affect pro Overwatch in the future. Before we get into all of that though, let's quickly talk about what hero pools are exactly, because some of you may actually not know if you didn't really watch the developer update yet. Okay, so to sum it up really quickly, basically earlier today during an Overwatch developer update, Jeff Kaplan comes out and says that hero pools will be premiering in competitive Overwatch starting in Season 21, both at the casual level and at the pro level. As for what the hero pool system itself is, well basically, it's this thing where you're going to have a rotation every single week in competitive play where certain heroes are going to be playable and others will not be. As for why this is done, well basically Jeff Kaplan says that he's heard all the feedback and he knows that a lot of people are tired of having the same exact meta for really long periods of time. And you know, that's pretty fair, right? GOATs lasted for like a year or maybe even longer until 222 was a thing, and then Double Shield lasted for a really long time as well. But now this change kind of makes it so that's not possible anymore because you're not always going to be able to play the overpowered heroes in a comp. And think about it strategy-wise. You're going to have to constantly think about what you're going to be playing, what you need to be playing. Are there any unique strategies we can run using some certain heroes that usually aren't used? I think you're going to see a lot more of that type of stuff because you're not always going to be able to work with what you want, so you're going to have to try and improvise. And that's basically how I would sum it up in my own words. But if you want to check out the entire developer update and every single thing that Jeff Kaplan had to say about this matter, then make sure to check out Overwatch's official YouTube channel. Alrighty, now let's talk about how hero pools are going to be affecting the Overwatch League in the future, and the best way to do that would basically be just to kind of sum up and read about some of the stuff that the Overwatch League said on their website regarding hero pools coming to the league. I'll make sure to leave a link to that in the description, by the way, but let's read this, shall we? Okay, so according to the Overwatch League, starting on March 7th, the league will make one tank, one support, and two damage heroes unavailable for selection during matches each weekend. The heroes will be randomly selected from a group of eligible heroes based on play rate data from the previous 2 weeks of Overwatch League matches, and only heroes that are being played regularly can be pulled from the next hero pool. Rule number 2 that is very important is that no hero will be unavailable 2 weeks in a row, and I like this. It makes it feel even less like this type of ban system because even if someone's overpowered, you will see them sometimes, you know? And even if they do seem like they're maybe kind of boring for some people, I don't like just completely excluding certain heroes from the game all the time, so I'm all for this. Anyway though, there's 2 other important points we have to touch on. One is that hero pools will not, and I repeat, they will not be used in mid-season tournaments, the play-in tournament, the overall playoffs, or the grand finals. Every single hero in the game will be available for those matches. And that's pretty interesting, right? Because now we have this situation where a majority of the season is going to involve a lot of chaos. There's not going to be a set meta, but then during these really important matches, there is going to be a set meta. You're going to see more preparation again. The strategies are probably going to be a bit more cleaner. Teams are going to expect things more often, and you're going to see less and less heroes be played. Then, of course, the fourth and final point I wanted to go over is that teams will be informed of each week's hero pool approximately 1 week in advance of matches, so they're going to have some prep time, but not a lot, obviously. They also go on to say in the article is that our expectation is that a rotating hero pool for Overwatch League matches will foster a wider range of team strategies and showcase more heroes in competition as players adapt and teams experiment with new compositions when some of the most played heroes are no longer options. To put that in more simple terms, basically, the Overwatch League wants the meta to change a lot, and they want to see how players and teams react when they can't always play the best heroes in the game. There's 2 other things I wanted to talk about. They don't really have to do with hero pools themselves, but it's still really important information that was released to the public. So for one, whenever the live game receives a new patch, the league will begin playing on that patch 2 weekends later. But to further add on to that, any mid-patch updates to the game that go into effect during a match weekend will be deployed for Overwatch League matches the following weekend. To explain that in my own words, the Overwatch League is just trying to make a big effort here to make it so the players are always playing, if not usually playing, on the live patch of the game. From a fan or entertainment perspective, I guess, this is pretty good, right? I think a lot of people really don't like it when the Overwatch League plays on an outdated patch, but now that's not really a concern anymore, and now you get to watch your favorite players in the league play on the exact same patch patch as you pretty much all the time. And at the end of the article, they make it very clear that the hero pool and patching and update stuff, that can all be revised at any point during the season, so pay attention to see if any of that stuff changes. Maybe we'll see the patches come earlier to the league or maybe later. I don't know what's going to happen with the hero pools either, but all of that is subject to change basically. So yeah, that's pretty much all that the Overwatch League had to say regarding the hero pools coming to the game in March. So now it's my turn. Let me unleash my opinions on how I feel. Alright, so I think about it like this. Like with pretty much any other change in life, there's things that are positive and negative that come with it. From the positive side of things, you're always going to see a modern version of the game usually in the league, which I think is a plus. Also, the fact that the meta is always changing is going to make the game more engaging, I feel. Another cool thing that comes with this change is the possibility of seeing more niche heroes get time on stage. I'm not guaranteeing you that you're going to see like a ton of Torb or anything, but I just feel the likelihood of him and other heroes you don't see much on stage is going to increase. I'm also thinking that hero specialist, or one tricks as some people like to call them, will be a bit more useful. Somebody like A&S on the San Francisco Shock, for an example, will probably get a decent amount of playtime if Widow is meta, for an example, for like a certain week. Or what about Doomfist? If Doomfist becomes meta, then you can put Chipsa in if you're the fusion. I know it sounds really weird, but now we're in a world where one tricks will have good use at certain points. Even though one tricks are going to be more useful, this also means that the super flexes like your Rascals and your Ursters of the world will be exponentially more valuable to your team. Now it's more important than it ever has been in the past to make sure all of your players are flexible and they feel comfortable playing all of the different heroes on their respective roles. It goes beyond DPS. Your main tanks have to be like that, your off tanks, your supports, everybody. And I just can't help but feel like this is a really good change for the game. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've expressed displeasure over specific players because their hero pool just isn't good enough. It's too limited, or they're a one trick even. But now, this change gives them that extra motivation to change that about themselves, to become more flexible, to try and practice more heroes and master more heroes. And guess what? If you can't adapt, you'll find yourself either on the bench or without a job. And yes, I know that is really harsh, that's super cold, but that's how it should be, I feel. After all, this is like the top 1 percentile of players in the world. These are professionals. These are the best of the best, and they need to show proficiency and mastery of this game in every single way they can. And I'll admit, they do a good job of this already, but I think a really good way to improve upon this is to show that you have a really good hero pool. And this is just the way that I've always envisioned Overwatch being played. This is my ideal world of competitive Overwatch. Regardless of whether you're playing quick play, competitive, or you're at the tier 1 or tier 2 scene, whatever it is, everybody on the team matters. On your 6-person team, everybody has their responsibilities. You all have to do your job. And if someone can't do that, then the team will suffer and you'll end up losing. You're going to be a liability. But a way of changing this is to make it so you can play whatever your team needs in a certain scenario, right? Nothing is guaranteed, but I think this is a good step in the right direction to have the game be played in a more ideal way. The final positive aspect I can think of that comes with hero pools is the league being more competitive in general. I think it'll be a bit less top heavy. And what I mean by that is that you're not always going to see the same teams dominate the meta because the meta is always going to be so different, you know? You can't master a meta if it only lasts for like a week. Here's a good example. Think about when GOATS was relevant during the Overwatch League in 2019. A team like the Vancouver Titans just dominated and ruled pretty much everybody because they had such better knowledge about that meta compared to everybody else. Meanwhile, you had a team like the Washington Justice or maybe the Florida Mayhem who had no idea what they were doing, and they really suffered the entire year because they were stuck in meta hell. They were really bad at that certain meta, and they just couldn't get a grasp on it. But then when you fast forward over to stage 4 of that season, teams like the Justice and the Mayhem are finding their groove because the meta is different now, plays more up to their strengths. And I think you're going to see a bunch of these ups and downs throughout the entire season, but like on a weekly basis this time around. Let's use the Justice again as an example for this. So maybe like the first week or so that they're playing, they might do really well because Widowmaker's meta and Hanzo's meta. But let's say that some of Corey's comfort heroes like Hanzo and Widow get banned. They're no longer in the hero pool for that week. Well, now the Justice might struggle and they might have some lows. I believe this type of system is a great way to single out the teams who are well equipped to deal with any situation from the ones who are going to be meta dependent. Okay, now let's talk about the negatives, and there's definitely a bunch of those as well. And most of them you'll find do revolve around the players and the staff, but that's really important, right? These guys are crucial pieces of the league, so it's definitely something we have to bring up. I think the first one is just in general, there's extra stress on the players and the coaches, since now they're not really going to be able to be in a groove, really. Things are always going to be changing all the time. There's so much pressure on them to be able to perform no matter what's going on, no matter what heroes are available. It's going to be very tough for them, and they already have enough stress to deal with as it is, so that really sucks for them, I feel. Like I said earlier, players are going to be more pressured now to make sure they can play as many different heroes as possible, but I think the coaches really suffer a lot too. I think ZP on Twitter said it the best, because he said coaches that focus on just refining existing strategies, it's going to be really tough for them, and that's what these coaches are used to doing, right? They're used to implementing certain strategies over and over again because the meta was always stagnant, but now that's not the case anymore. These coaches for every single team are going to have to get a lot more creative, and I think ZP once again says it the best in his tweet, as he says that the coaches that will find the most success are the ones who will be great at finding these innovative one-off strats. But sadly, that's only one half of the equation, because that's a lot easier said than done, right? There's the matter of execution too, and that gets me into my next point. I feel that executing certain strategies is going to be so much harder. No matter how good your chemistry is and how good your coaching is, it's going to be really tough because this is on really short notice, you know? There's more of a chance for things to go wrong. Although he's no longer with the Overwatch League, Monty would seem to agree with me here, as he says, Atwell is basically ranked games now. Rip actual planning, set plays, and strategy. And I mean, he's not wrong. I think that is all severely hindered thanks to the hero pool thing. The strats and the pre-game planning was one of the things that made Pro Overwatch just so much fun to watch, I feel, and I think not having nearly as much as that anymore is super sad. I think that's one of the things that made this esport so unique and interesting. Now, that's not to say we won't have any of this stuff anymore at all, but we certainly will see a lot less of it. And again, this all comes back to the fact that there's just going to be so much more pressure on these players and these coaches and teams in general to figure it out and just be able to do things in a very short amount of time, but some people are welcoming it with open arms, like Neptuno, for an example. He's accepting the challenge. He's ready. He thinks that it's a good way to just have better fundamentals and an understanding of the game, but other people don't really like it as much, and that's completely understandable too. I'm not quite sure if the general consensus for most players and coaches is that this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm assuming it's more on the bad side of things, but you never know, I guess. Either way, I don't think everybody's going to be happy by a long shot with something like this. It's going to be rough. The good news, though, is that they could always change how hero pools work. Maybe they could even get rid of them in the end if it really doesn't work out. The bad news, however, though, is that there's probably going to have to be a lot of experimentation that goes on in order to find a system that works great. And who knows how long that can take before they find a good balance. And we all know how good Blizzard is at balancing things, so God knows how long this could end up taking if there's a problem. And yeah, those are all the negatives I can think of, but now before I wrap up the video, I just wanted to give a quick overview of how I feel about all this. So when I think about it, I can't really say that I love or hate the hero pool thing yet. I'm pretty neutral on the matter because I haven't seen it in action yet. I'd like to see it get tested out before I can really judge. I don't want to jump to any immediate conclusions just yet, and I believe that all of you watching this video should do the exact same. And I say that because as human beings, we hate to accept change, both in this Overwatch community and just life in general. We don't like to deal with it. And as a result, we just naturally approach things that are changing with this negative mindset a lot of the time, and we don't like it, you know? But I just don't think that's the right way to approach this here. We need to have an open mind. Let's trust in what the devs are doing. Let's give it a shot. Let's test it out on the live server for ourselves to see what we really think. And at the same time, let's carefully observe how it works in the Overwatch League for like a couple of weeks, and then we'll come to conclusions. I think that's the way to do it. Give it a chance first and then judge. Even though I'm going to remain neutral on this and I'm not going to judge just yet, I have to say that I think there's more positives that could come with this hero pool thing than there are negatives. The negative things, though, I will admit, are really big, but there's a lot of positives to kind of help balance out the scale, if you will. It's true this is going to be really stressful for the players and the coaches, but I think it goes without saying that goes for every single team, basically. I'm sure it's going to show for some teams more than it is others, but I think it's going to result in some evenly matched games because there's going to be times where nobody's going to know what they're doing, so it evens out the playing field. But also, I think this is a really good learning process for both the players and the coaches. It helps them become more fundamentally sound with this game, as Neptuno was saying. I think he brings up a really good point there. It makes it so everybody's not just learning the same thing over and over again, you know? It's not the same heroes and the same comps every single day for like months at a time. now you never know what's going to happen, and it makes you learn more about the game and about yourself as a player or a coach for that matter. And as I was saying before with the fan thing, I think that just overall this is a really good thing for any fan of the Overwatch League. Unpredictability, chaos, and disorder enhance fan experience. It makes it so much more enjoyable regardless of the sport. So this is looking like a really interesting and exciting time for the Overwatch League, ladies and gentlemen. Get excited to watch these changes premiere in March. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up my thoughts on the whole hero pool thing. So make sure to let me know what you think of it down in the comment section, because I'm really interested to hear what other people have to say about it. But also, if you enjoyed this content today, I would appreciate it a ton if you could hit the like button and sub to my channel if you haven't already. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter at ATP Overwatch and join my Discord server through the link in the description. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's video. I appreciate it a ton. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.